Hello, and welcome back to Controller Culture, where we break down the games that shape the way we play. Today, we're talking about something I don't see nearly enough people bring up. Something that's been right in front of us for years. With Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment less than a month away, I wanted to take a step back and look at how insanely smart Nintendo's marketing has been for the entire Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom era of Zelda. And no, this isn't another breakdown about open world freedom or the creativity that shaped a generation, blah, 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 that type of stuff. This is about the story, because whether we realize it or not, the story itself has been one of Nintendo's biggest marketing tools. When Breath of the Wild launched as a day one title for the Nintendo Switch back in 2017, the world lost its mind. Tens across the board, Game of the Year, a genre-defining open world, you name it. And me, I was 15, broke and absolutely glued to it. Probably because it was the only game I could afford for the next 6 months. But it didn't matter. It was absolute magic. Yet for all its praise, Breath of the Wild wasn't perfect. There were frame drops, glitches, and a weird emptiness some fans couldn't shake. But the biggest complaint, the lack of a present story. Most of the narrative happened 100 years in the past. You learned about events through memories and echoes, not real-time storytelling. For many players, that created a craving, a hunger to understand what actually happened. How did Zelda seal Ganon for 100 years? How did King Rome die? What caused each of the champions to fail taking their divine beasts back? And of course, the mysterious question that haunted us prior to Tears of the Kingdom. Who are the Zonai? Nintendo had given us a masterpiece, but one that left us obsessed with gaps. And here's where the marketing brilliance begins. For over 2 years, the community filled in the blanks themselves. Lore videos, theory channels, deep dives, you name it. It was the golden age of Zelda speculation. But in September of 2020, out of nowhere, in a Nintendo Direct mini partner showcase of all places, we got Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. It wasn't a sequel, it wasn't even the same genre, but it was the missing piece everyone had been begging for. The story of what happened 100 years before Breath of the Wild. And here's the thing, the gameplay wasn't perfect, the frame rate ran worse than my college PowerPoint presentations. But none of that mattered because the story was the hook. Nintendo knew that by this point, the gameplay formula of Breath of the Wild had already been accepted. Players wanted context more than anything, so they gave us the story and they sold millions doing it. Age of Calamity sold over 4 million copies in its first 2 years. That's not just good, that's genius. Nintendo turned fan frustration into fuel. But it doesn't stop there. Breath of the Wild ended not with a final victory but with a tease. Zelda looking toward the future, planning on rebuilding the Hyrule ruined by Calamity Ganon. A sequel was inevitable, and Nintendo knew that. At E3 2019, we got our first glimpse, just a title card, the sequel to Breath of the Wild. And that was enough to send the entire fan base into a meltdown. For 3 years, every direct, every rumor, every shadow of Link in a trailer kept people theorizing non-stop. Then finally, in September 2022, we got a name. Tears of the Kingdom. Now, here's where things get really clever. Fans expected Tears of the Kingdom to fix everything its predecessors didn't. Deeper story, real dungeons, present-day conflict, and to an extent, Nintendo delivered. Boss fights were more diverse, the tone was darker, the story explored the origins of Hyrule. But once again, the main story takes place in the past. The imprisoning war, ancient Zonai ruins, the birth of Ganondorf's hatred, all events you can't directly interact with. It was deja vu. Nintendo has successfully recreated the same emotional loop that fueled Breath of the Wild's longevity. Its curiosity, its mystery, its craving, and right on cue. In April 2025, they gave fans exactly what they were craving for. Hyrule Warriors, Age of Imprisonment. History repeats itself by design. Here's the part that makes this whole thing borderline evil genius. Age of Imprisonment isn't just a lore dump or a side project. It's launching exclusively on the Switch 2, early in the console's lifecycle. That means if you want to know the rest of the story, if you want closure to the Tears of the Kingdom timeline, you will have to buy a $450 console. Some people will call that manipulative, others will call it marketing brilliance. Because, think about it, Nintendo has used story gaps as a marketing tool to sell hardware, DLC, and spin-offs, all while keeping the fanbase emotionally invested for nearly a decade. They didn't just sell us games, they sold us questions, and they've trained an entire generation of players to crave the answers. That's the genius of this era of Zelda. Nintendo managed to modernize an iconic franchise without rebooting it, without alienating fans, and without rushing sequels. Instead, they used curiosity as currency. They made us theorize, they made us speculate, and even when we complained about the story being in the past, it was that exact frustration that kept Zelda alive in conversation for 8 years straight. It's not just clever game design, it's long-term brand engineering. Every time you think the cycle's over, they start it again. Breath of the Wild, Age of Calamity, Tears of the Kingdom, Age of Imprisonment. And if history has taught us anything, this pattern isn't ending anytime soon. So yeah, Nintendo really did outsmart everyone with Zelda's marketing. They didn't just craft one of gaming's greatest open worlds, they created one of gaming's longest running mysteries. A franchise that thrives not just on what we play, but on what we don't know yet. And as we look toward Age of Imprisonment and the dawn of the Switch 2 era, one thing's for sure, Nintendo's mastered the art of keeping us hooked. One unanswered question at a time. Thanks for watching Controller Culture. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know down below. Do you think Nintendo's storytelling strategy is brilliant, manipulative, or both? In my opinion, they are damn geniuses. Until next time, keep playing, keep questioning, and I'll see you all in the next one.